General Philip Breedlove, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, Congressman Adam Smith, Democrat from Washington State, ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. Gentlemen, good to see both of you. Thank you. General, I want to start with you. Is there a deal possible that both Russia and Ukraine would be willing to sign up for, and that Europe, to the extent that they matter, could get behind?
Thanks again for having me on, Leland. It's good to be here and to be here with the congressman. Very unlikely. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Putin has made his demands about Ukraine very, very clear. And he has complete attention on taking Ukraine back under the tutelage and control of Russia. And Zelensky cannot agree to that. The people of Ukraine do not agree to that. The polling is demonstrative that they do not want to be back under the control of Russia. So I don't give that, the way you stated it, a lot of chance.
You know, Congressman, I understand the criticism of this peace adventure, push, determination, whatever you want to call it. That said, and I put it in the monologue, that President Biden missed a couple of opportunities to have a very good deal, not a perfect deal, to end the war in Ukraine. Can we all agree that trying to have a deal that ends this conflict and stops the threat of escalation is a good one?
I think it's worth pursuing. Now, I disagree slightly with the way you put it there. I don't think there was a deal on the table that Biden rejected. I don't agree with that assessment. I think that's a little bit of a myth that Russia has generated. But I do agree that he should have pushed harder to try to get to one, to at least start the conversation. And I don't have a problem with President Trump pushing that conversation as well. Now, the way he has pushed it has been fundamentally flawed, in that he's put too much pressure on Zelensky and not enough pressure on Putin. Because I agree.
Do we know that, though?
Well, what we saw in Alaska, what we've seen in the Oval Office when Zelensky showed up the first day, what the president and vice president have been saying over and over and over again, being critical of Ukraine, frequently restating some of Russia's basic talking points about how, NATO was as responsible for the war as Russia. Yeah, we know that. Okay. The president did not put pressure on Putin. He put the pressure on Zelensky, and that emboldened Putin. I think the general's right. Putin wants all of Ukraine. The only way we get to a peace deal is if we convince him that's not going to happen. And to convince him that's not going to happen, we have to show unwavering support for Ukraine, even while we push for a peace agreement. And that's where I think Trump has messed up and how he's approached this. Too often, Putin would not be wrong for looking what Trump has said in concluding, if I just hold out a little bit longer, eventually the U.S. is going to bail on Ukraine. So I think that was a mistake.
General, battlefield realities are realities. There's what everybody wants in the diplomacy world and at think tanks and what life could be. Yes, Ukraine has held out longer than anybody thought. You and I were on the air in the opening days of this war saying this could be over in a matter of a week. And the Ukrainians have held out for almost now 4 years. It's been nothing short of extraordinary. My question to you, though, is this. What does an enforcement of a peace deal look like? You have so often on this program argued that Vladimir Putin breaks every deal. We both know that because we've been there and witnessed it. How do you enforce a peace deal that is made?
Well, first of all, Leland, you and I have talked about this before, and I'm not being critical, but this war is over 11 years old. It started when I was the SACEUR in the early spring, winter of 14, and it has never stopped. We had the invasion of Crimea, then the invasion of the Donbass, then we had a hot contact line for almost 6 years. Russians were dying, Ukrainians were dying, and now we have a third phase, or a hot phase, of this war. What does it take? It's not my words, but I love them. Mr. Putin will not stop. He has to be stopped. The old Lenin line of when you approach an enemy, fix your bayonet and push it into his belly. If it is soft, push harder. If it is hard, pull back and reconsider. We have not shown Mr. Putin a hard belly. We have not shown him anything that's going to stop him. First step to stopping him is actually telling him to stop. All of the negotiations we've done so far, we basically go hat in hand and ask for things. We've been rebuffed repeatedly, and then Mr. Putin attacks Ukraine in a massive way the very next day. We are going to have to show Mr. Putin, when he looks to the West, he sees American flags, NATO flags, and EU flags, and force will stop Mr. Putin.
It's the only language Putin understands. This was Bill O'Reilly last night talking about Vladimir Putin's underbelly, if you might say.
Vlad's starting to sweat because Vlad needs millions of dollars in hard currency, not rubles, to pay the generals that prop him up. Once that money dissolves, you're going to see Vlad's head on a stick.
Congressman, I know Democrats are critical of President Trump. They should be. That's what the other side's job is. But are Democrats thoughtful enough about the first few years of this war, or the most recent war, where Joe Biden did not show, as the general put, steel in front of Vladimir Putin and the bayonet kept pushing?
Sorry, politics aside, I think what Bill O'Reilly said there is crucial, and it's what we really need to focus on. That the answer to your question that you asked the general is, if we strengthen Ukraine, that's what makes this enforceable, not Putin's word, but the fact that he can't get at Ukraine because the U.S. and our 54-nation coalition has made it clear that we're going to continue to arm them. Any limitation on Ukraine's ability to defend itself after this peace deal cannot be part of any peace deal. Ukraine has to have the full 100% right to protect their sovereign territory, and we have to commit to helping them. Because Putin's in more trouble than people realize. Far be it for me to agree with Bill O'Reilly, but Putin has expended a lot on this war. Hundreds of thousands of casualties. He is reaching the point where he can't keep this going. If we show that strength, that is what makes this peace deal enforceable and forces Putin to the table. I could get into a long conversation about what we did or didn't do in the first 2 years of the war, but that's the much
Congressman,
more
I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that for your Thanksgiving table because we have to run. But you're right that if Putin is forced and his weakness exposed, that is where he'll make a deal. It's just the way life is. Gentlemen, thank you to you both. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.